Hello and welcome back to my channel. The Ronde van Vlaanderen is finally here. This weekend the first of the two cobbled monuments will start, and personally I can't wait because these two races are, together with Strade Bianche, probably my two favorite races of the year. For most people it's the Grand Tours, but for me it's the cobbled classics in general, but of course the monuments are something special. And now it is finally the time of the year again, and let's talk about the favorites for this race. So my top favorites are Wout van Aert and Zdeněk Štýbar, and to an extent maybe also Greg van Avermaet. So those three should be among the top favorites in general for most people, but I will get into that, why I think those three are probably the top contenders for this race. So if we look at the numbers, the wattage that Van Aert was powering up the climbs, the cobbled climbs in recent classics, it was just insane. He was almost every time he was the strongest up those hills, and he has a really great season. People were wondering in the winter when his cyclocross results were not as good as they used to be, but now it is obvious why, because he was preparing for the roads, for his road campaign, for the cobbled classics, so he wanted to be in top shape, not in the winter but in April. And his recent results show that. He was already third at Strade Bianche, he was sixth at Milano-San Remo, and he was second at E3. So the results are there, and yeah, why not take the big one, take the Ronde van Vlaanderen. Though it has to be said that he probably will have to shake his competitors on the hills and go solo, because I don't think he can out-sprint most of them. He's not the slowest, but I think there are quite a few people who are faster than him, but we'll get to that later. Then, if it wasn't for Alaphilippe, probably Štýbar would be the man of the season so far, if we talk about classics, because he has already won Omloop at Nieuwsblad and E3. He also won the stage up to Malau at the Tour of Algarve earlier this season in February, and he was again fourth at Strade Bianche. So his worst result, I think, in the last 5 years in that race is 7th place, which was last year. He's really good in that race, but this season, after Terpstra is gone, Bonen is gone, he is finally the captain of Quick-Step for those cobbled races. He has more freedom. In previous years he had to work a lot for his leaders like Terpstra or Bonen when they took their wins, and he was never bad. Like, Štýbar had always good results, but always had to be the guy who chased down attacks and then had to watch his teammates celebrate. He still finished inside the top 10, but now he is actually the leader. Yeah, they also have Gilbert, but Gilbert is ill at the moment. They also have Lampaert, but Lampaert's form does not, I don't know, his form doesn't seem to be too great at the moment, or at least not his results. And then there's Bob Jongels in this race. I don't know if he will race Paris-Roubaix, but he will be at the start line for the Ronde. And his recent results are really great on the cobbles. Talked about that earlier in an earlier video, that I think he should maybe switch his focus from a Grand Tour rider to a classic specialist. He has already won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, won a few cobbled classics, or won one and podiumed another one. So yeah, he's really great in one-day racing, while he's only decent or above average in Grand Tours. He's not a bad climber, but he's also not the best. And that will always make it very difficult for him to shake guys like, for example, Bernal or so in the future. So yeah, one-day racing could be his niche, like he's really, really versatile, but his specialty could actually be one-day racing. So De Koning, like always, they will field a pretty strong team as a whole, but Stieber should be the captain, while Jungels could go long. Maybe this time he will be the Niki Terpstra guy. Niki Terpstra won his Paris-Roubaix while Tom Bonen was the actual captain. So you never know. He is strong enough, but like we talked about before, he does not have the sprint like Van Aert. He has to go long. Then I want to mention Greg van Avermaet. Greg van Avermaet has only one win at Valenciana this season. He was, except of that, the nearly man of the season. A lot of second places, third places, so lots of podiums, be it in Oman, be it at Tirreno, so at E3. So he was always there or thereabouts, but the big win this season has eluded him. So I can't put him at the top of my list. I would have put Ollie Naesen on my list, but Ollie Naesen, like Gilbert, is at the moment ill. He's on antibiotics. He said because of the champagne he had after a recent race in his face. Yeah, okay. But nonetheless, he is on antibiotics, so I don't know if he or Gilbert will be fit enough to actually challenge for the win. Like Ollie Naesen had a really good season so far, but this is a problem right now for him and AG Dessert. So let's see if he will get a decent day, if he can shake this illness until Sunday. Today when I'm recording this, it's Friday, so he still has 2 days. We never know. So then, next on my list, of course, the defending champion is Niki Terpstra. He has a pretty good team actually, even though it's a pro-continental team with direct energy, but he has a few good riders in his squad who can help him. But his form does not seem to be as good as last year. Last year he was winning basically everything he tried to in the spring, or was on the podium. This season he has 2 podiums. His 2 podiums were third at Kuurne Brussels Kuurne and the semi-classic Les Amis, which he also won in previous years. So yeah, you can't count him out as a defending champion, but his form is not as good as in previous years, and also his team is not as strong as Quickstep, even though, like I said, he has decent helpers, good helpers, but it's not the insane squad of Lefebvre at his side, at his disposal. So yeah, then we have to talk about Peter Sagan. Peter Sagan is not as strong as he usually is this time around of the year, because he wanted to go for Paris-Roubaix and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, so he started a little bit slower. Yes, he won a stage in Australia, but other than that, again, lots of podiums like we know of Sagan, but his form is questionable at the moment. Maybe he has peaked right in the perfect time, right at the perfect moment for the monuments. I don't know. So usually in top form I would have to put Sagan on the top of my list for contenders for those races, but in 2019 I think Van Aert or Stieber are in better form than Sagan, but in a sprint against those guys, if he can hang with them on the climbs, on the cobbled hills, then he is the man to beat in the sprint, like he usually is. So you can't count him out, you have to mention him. He's a great rider, So yeah, next on my list is Thierry Benoit. He has a season riddled by injuries, by crashes, but last year he was really good in the spring or throughout the season. This time he, like I said, has crashed, was not in perfect shape, but I have high hopes for him. He's a great, talented rider, and I'd like to see him perform well. His recent results have gone upwards, so I thought I should include him in my list of favorites. I should talk about him because on his day he is a really strong rider. So we'll have to see what Lotto can do with him. Or they also have Tim Wellens at the start line, who is always good for an attack. You never know with that guy. Sometimes he pulls it off, often enough he does not. But Lotto is an attacking team in general. They have the riders who like to go long, who like to try the crazy stuff, and that's always entertaining for the race. So yeah, watch out for Benoit. Next on my list is actually Matteo Trentin, who has a really interesting season so far. Few top 10s, has already 2 wins actually, and always tries to attack, always tries his luck. If we look at his recent results, 2 7th places in the last 2 cobbled classics he rode. So he's always at the front, he always tries his luck, tries to surprise the others. In my opinion, he could actually wait for the sprint, but maybe often enough he was scared that he would be outsprinted by Sagan. But Trentin has a decent sprint. He has won Grand Tour stages in every Grand Tour, all 3 of them. And he is not that bad, like especially his sprints at the Vuelta. Okay, the competition was not that high, but he won bunch sprints, so he can do it, and maybe he should wait for that. Go with the group and not try to attack them late, but actually wait for the sprint and then be faster than everyone else. While his current tactic is to get in the group and then attack inside the last 2 or 3 kilometers, try to surprise the others, which has obviously not worked out this season so far. But the change of team was really great for him. Last season he was injured a lot, but this season he showed why Mitchelton Scott invested in him, and De Koning had to let him go. He wanted to have more chances for himself, wanted to be a leader, and now he's the unquestioned leader for the cobbled racers for that team. And the results are not bad, but I think they could actually be better. I can't blame him for trying his luck and trying to be entertaining, but he could have maybe won a few of those races where he attacked late if he would have waited for the sprint. So keep an eye out for him. Then next on my list is actually Alberto Bettiol, because Van Marke is also ill. I don't know if he will even be at the start line, but even if he is, Bettiol showed a lot of promise at E3 when he was actually 4th. He's only 25, great Italian talent for these kind of races. He's probably, if Van Marke is not at the start line or if he is not in top shape, probably the captain actually for Education First. So we'll have to see. Van Marke, I talked about that also in an earlier video, that he has crashed a lot and had a lot of near misses, and maybe it is actually time to move on from him, because he did not get the results that most of us thought he could achieve. He was talked up as the next Bonen or whatnot, and has not quite become that. He was at times a really dominant rider, but like so many other riders, he did not have the sprint in the end, so got a few podiums, but could not pull off the big one, even though he was strong on the flats, strong on the cobbles, but could not finish it off. But he was also not strong enough to actually go solo like Gilbert did or like Terpstra did in previous years of those cobbled classics. So yeah, that is a name I like to mention. Then for Sky, it is probably Luke Rowe. Yeah, Moscon is also in the race, but I don't know. Moscon's form after his crash at Tirreno is not that amazing yet, which is bad for him, bad for Sky, because in top form he could be a contender, or at least get a top 10 in my opinion. Personally, I'm not a favorite of Moscon, of the person, but he's a really great rider. So with that in mind, they will probably ride for Luke Rowe, who is in decent shape at the moment, but also can he even outsprint anybody? He is probably, of all the favorites or of the contenders, the slowest of them all when it comes to a sprint finish. So Luke Rowe has to go solo at some point, and I doubt that he is strong enough to finish that off. I think that some guy will probably be able to go with him, but I think he is in good enough form to actually challenge for a top 10 spot if things go right for him. And then we have a few teams with interesting lineups where I can't single a single rider out, because let's take for instance, we have Sunweb, who have Søren Kragh Andersen, who had decent results last year. This spring, not that amazing, but still an interesting rider to watch. I'd like to see him perform well, show more development in those one-day races. But they also have Michael Matthews, who got into form right at the perfect time. He won 2 stages in Catalonia last week, so he has the form. He gets over those hills pretty well, and if he's there at the end, like Trentin, like Sagan, he is a guy who can wait for a sprint, and if it comes to a finish from a small group, he has to be one of the main favorites, if that is the case. After 270 kilometers, or almost, it is hard to imagine seeing a group of 20 plus riders at the finish. But if there are 10 to 15, which is still unlikely, but maybe we will see that, then Sunweb has a guy who can finish it off. Another team who has multiple options in that department is UAE, who have again Christoph and Gaviria, 2 really great sprinters. And Gaviria said, like even when he was new at Quickstep in 2016, that he loves the cobbled classics. His favorite race that he wants to win in his career is Paris-Roubaix. I don't know if he can get over the hills for the Ronde, but Christoph absolutely can. We have seen that before. And he's also in really great shape, so can't forget him. Christoph is in great shape, so he will be probably this time around be the guy for UAE. While Gaviria, he tried his luck with an attack recently at Gent-Wevelgem, which was then won by Christoph. But yeah, he tired the other guys out, so maybe Gaviria will attack again, and if no one of decent shape or talent is in that group, maybe if they stay away, Gaviria has the sprint, but I would put higher chances on Christoph for the Ronde. Maybe in Roubaix, where it's flat, maybe Gaviria can hang with them. We'll have to see about that one. but for the Ronde van Vlaanderen, it should be Christoph. Another team who has multiple options is Trek Segafredo, who have 3 to 4 guys actually. They have Jasper Stuyven, Mats Pedersen, and Degenkolb, and all of them can actually win this race, in my opinion. Degenkolb is not a bad sprinter. He gets over cobbles really well. Pedersen showed last year that he is one of the best currently when it comes to riding on cobblestones. And Stuyven is always an interesting rider because he's always there or thereabouts. Has a lot of great finishes in those races. And yeah, why not? Why not take a monument? I think he has it in him. So Trek is an interesting team. They underperformed a little bit at the start of the season when it came to these one-day races or in general. But those 3 guys, if they play their cards right, they actually have strength in numbers. Like other teams have only 1 guy, but Trek actually have multiple options. They are one of the few teams who can rival Quickstep when it comes to strength in numbers. Not at the top of the game. Like Quickstep has basically 3 or 4 favorites for the race, while Trek has 3 to 4 guys who you would think can finish inside the top 10. But if they play their cards right, then they could finish not only on the podium, but take it all. And then I want to talk about, no, not lastly, I want to talk about Mathieu van der Poel. We talked about him before. Really, really interesting rider, one of the best cyclocross riders of all time, and this season finally on the road. And he seems to be made for those cobbled one-day races. He also has great help in his team, which is Stein de Volder, who is by now 39 years of age, but he has won this race 2 times in 2008 and 2009. So he has the experience to show the young guy the ropes, what it takes, where to be positioned on those hills, that you can't be in like 50th position or so in the peloton, that you need to be in the top 20 at least, if not in the top 10, top 5. So De Volder knows that, and he will position Mathieu van der Poel, who is maybe one of the biggest talents, even though he's just starting his road career, basically. It has gone upwards, the race days he has on the road. Like 3 years ago or so, he did maybe 1 or 2 races on the road per season, and now, slowly but surely, he is changing his mind and doing more road stuff, even though his main focus is still on the winter on cyclocross, because he loves it, and why stop doing something you love to do? That would be foolish. If he does not enjoy the road as much as cyclocross, why stop? But yeah, this time he's at the start line for the Ronde, and he is considered by a lot of people as one of the top favorites. I can't put him there just yet, because the races where he performed really well were the shorter classics of like 180 kilometers, and this is almost 100 kilometers more, and that is a whole nother world. So yeah, we'll have to see. Talent-wise, he has to be put up there, but it's also a question of experience. He has not ridden a monument yet, and even though Stein de Volder will be of great value, he's one of the best cobbled riders of the last decade. Like I said, he won the Ronde twice, but I can't put him at the top of my list just yet. And lastly, I want to mention Team Movistar. And now you might think, why Movistar? They're a team just made out of climbers. But actually, this year they field a pretty decent team at the Ronde van Vlaanderen. They have 4 guys who I think can do well in this race. We have seen even though rarely, but he is not bad on cobbles. The current world champion Alejandro Valverde, who has a few good placings on cobblestones. This will actually be his debut at this race, riding it for the first time, but nonetheless, he knows what it takes to win monuments. And if he is there at the end, he is not the worst sprinter, we know that. Valverde, if he really wants to go for this race in his world champion stripes, I think he has a decent shot. And also in this team, they brought in last year Jürgen Rolands, who is a really great cobblestone rider. I thought maybe he could be actual captain for those races. I have him on one of my fantasy teams because I thought he could perform well for Movistar, which he could not at his previous team where he had to be a helper. But also at Movistar he is just another helper for Valverde. Then we have Nelson Oliveira, who had a few breakaway attempts in recent cobbled classics. So he is not afraid to ride on those cobbles and try to go long, be in the breakaway, represent his team. So he will be there at the front. And then we have also Emanuele Vitti, who had his amazing season in 2016, where he finished inside the top 10, both Ronde and Paris-Roubaix, inside the top 10 in that year. Since then, not as great results in the monuments, but he has established himself as a decent cobblestone rider. But if you if you add these three to Valverde, they have actually an interesting team who could do well on a terrain where 2 years ago you thought, okay, they just have to start 7-8 guys because they're a World Tour team, but they will never win it. This season around, I actually believe they have multiple guys who can position Valverde well, and that can make all the difference. If he's positioned well, if he's protected well until the end, if he has teammates to bring him water bottles, to chase down breakaways, if he does not have to do it himself, that could lead to a actually fresh Valverde in the end. And with that guy, you never know. Like over the last 2 decades, he has won so many races. You can never count him out. And yeah, with that, I can't wait for the weekend. I'm out.